This is really good. This is really good. Publix sponsor me. Publix sponsor me. Anyways, hello, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is David. I make videos talking about stuff that I want to talk about today, right now, right here, and for the next few weeks. In terms of me recording, I'm going to be doing my episodes 13 to 16 recap, review, ideas, theory, yapping session of the Magnus Protocol horror podcast, written by Jonathan Sims and Alexander J. Newell, directed by Alexander J. Newell, produced by the Rusty Quill production company. And yeah, like I said before, this is my raw and unfiltered ideas and thoughts, divorced from the fandom, because I want it to just like what my brain reads. And obviously I will be interacting, like looking at what the fandom thinks after the fact, but I wanted this to be straight off of my own thoughts, to discover the story on my own, because that's really fun for me. Anyways, I got new stickers. I got a little mushroom, and I got a little mushroom. So let's begin with episode 13, Futures. From now on, I'm just gonna read the first chunk of the code, because the last part of the code is dates, and I'll just talk about the dates. So yes, Futures, CAT3 RB 4622. Gambling, parentheses, application, // self-destruction, brackets, voicemail, close brackets. CAT3 is category 3, so a catalyst in as to. Oh, should I recap that for this episode? Yeah, let's recap that. Thank you again to Hylian Persona on Reddit, who gave me this theory that I enjoyed, which was the CAT number is category, and the R letter is rank, and then DPHW is death, pain, helplessness, and weird. The third category is catalyst. Categories 1 and 2 are agent and subject, respectively. And so my idea of the catalyst is the app, Zora Trader itself. It is rank B. What does rank B mean? I do not know yet. That was not described to me, but I know it is rank B. And the DPHW, death is rated at 4, pain is rated at 6, helplessness is rated at 2, and weird is rated at 2. Now, pain is 6. I feel it should be higher, considering the contents of the statement. So I need to know what what needs to happen for pain to be a 9. Because a 6 for this guy? Yo. Damn. The events of this statement occurred September 17th, 2023, and the catalogization is March 14th, 2024. To note, this episode occurs the next day after episode 12, and so I'm not keeping track of it, because it would be a little too much, but we know that today, the 14th, is a Saturday. And I'll get to why in a second. How we know that in a second. This episode was written by Alexander J. Newell. It aired April 25th, 2024. My brief summary for this episode is: evil app makes you hurt yourself. And the possible entity is the web. Of course, I'm proceeding with the idea that Smirks 14 are in this world until proven otherwise. So we begin with, where's my juice? Sam and Celia on a date. That's how we know that it is Saturday, because Celia told Sam that they could go out to eat together on Saturday at 6. So the 14th is Saturday, which, does that match up with the calendar of this year? Hold on. My tablet died, so I cannot check that. Anyways, That's something to note. Is it going to affect anything? No. It's fun to think, though. Anyways, Celia confesses that she has a son who is 1 year old named Jack. And Jack was the name that she had mentioned 2 episodes ago when she woke up in the middle of a train station. 2 episodes ago? When she woke up in the middle of a train station and she said, "Don't worry, Jack, I'm coming." Yeah, that was episode 11. So we know who Jack is. Sam says that he was gifted as a child, and his parents enrolled him in every enrichment program they could find. And Sulu is like, and that includes the Magnus Institute. And he says, actually, no, that's the only one that didn't want me. After that, he sort of fell off the wagon, not in the like traditional sense, but definitely like academically, I guess, or just like what he does in his life. He went through like 1 or 2 different jobs until he finally ended up in the OYAR. I've noted it just in case, but it mentioned he mentioned that he either like knew Alice or whatever. I don't know, something in terms of Alice, but we learn that Alice's parents are dead. In case that was a question, and Sam's parents are fully alive. And as they're like talking and like flirting with each other, which is like really cute, Celia firmly believes that the cases they read are real, and that very much like fits within the same line of thinking that we have with the statements we read in the Magnus archives, being the only statements that are not able to be digitized, which means that they are real because of the eye doing stuff. And if we think that this is the eye, or the actually was the web making sure that we get these and the eye is just feeding off of it, whatever, it's definitely like the ones that are being read out to us are real. And that means she knows about that like pattern from the Magnus archives, which means that let's say all together, she knows. In scene 2, Gwen asks Lena if she's responsible for the death that was caused by Mr. Bonzo that we saw in episode 12 getting off, because she gave Mr. Bonzo, who I'm not going to remind you all who Mr. Bonzo is because he's unforgettable. And she gave Mr. Bonzo a letter with a name and address, which is supposedly, allegedly, the person who was killed by Mr. Bonzo in episode 12 getting off. And Lena says she's more or less responsible. And Gwen asks her what the hell is happening. And Lena tells her that there are opposing forces in the world, both good and bad. And the OIR manages the bad guys and keeps the balance. And there's another email for Gwen that that's going to be another external that needs assignments. So like another bad person that needs to be told what to do. In scene 3, we begin to hear a new statement. First, we begin to hear an answer phone for Zor Trade customer line, and there is a complaint log. The answer phone for Zor Trade is a robot, quote unquote, but the voice acting is obviously like someone real. It's not like a fake robot. It's a real person voice acting. So very much like this is one person who's an avatar, and I'll talk a little bit that later. But the voice actor is Xena Carswell. I do not know their pronouns, so I'm just they sounded better than a robot, at least better than fucking AI, and it's definitely like pre-recorded, or it could be interesting for them to be like, hello, this is a pre-recorded line. I am a robot, but they're actually not. They're actually listening and they're like, ooh, tell me about this. Tell me. I think that would be a thing you would see in horror, And we get a man named Darian Laurel, who we don't learn his name until like later, but that's his name in the transcript. No, this is good. And Darian Laurel is voice acted by I think it was Ewan Sheedan. I believe his accent is North Irish because he sounded a lot like Blue Hydrangea, winner of UK versus Drag Race UK versus the World Season 1. And I was like, when I was listening to this episode, I was riding my bike, and I was like, I can imagine Blue Hydrangea reading out this statement, because it's very similar accent. I think it's North Ireland, but I might be wrong about that. But that is what I gleaned, at least. Anyways, he wants his money back. He's in a hospital bed, and he's like telling the customer support line, complaint line, hey, give me my money back. Hey, give me my money back. And fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm worried about hiding now. And he like he's like yelling at the recorder, and then he's like, so this is my life story. So he's just talking about how he used the Zora Trade app to get money by shorting, which I had to look up. It is investing in a way so investors will profit if the market value falls for the thing that they're investing. So, for example, he's investing in, say, maybe like, I don't know, a theme park, and the theme park goes down. He makes money off of it going down. And eventually he lost money from Dantix in 2020. Don't know what that means, how he lost that money or whatever. And so he's just hanging around once with his friend Ollie, and he finds a feature called the personal projection short selling, which is when, short selling is gaining money when a bracket thing fails. And so the feature said the settings were experimental and user discretion is advised. He was like, you think that covers you legally? I think it does. I think it does. And he was like, I have no money left. Let me just invest like $1,000 and then just go to sleep. And then after that, the next day, Ollie, his friend, just kicks him out, and he is just on like the beach in Le Brusque, France. And his phone also dies. And at the same time, he's saying that he does get a beep from the recording machine, and then he's like, shut up, I'm just talking. I know my time is ended, but I'm like, at this point, your message would have just been cut off. So this is why I'm thinking like the person who's listening to him, Zora Trade answer phone, is someone actively listening or whatever. And he continues talking about how he gets mugged and everything gets taken from him. But I put his wallet, but no. What? I put but his wallet. No, his phone. His phone is the only thing not taken from him. Which is I feel is supposed to be a little spooky. And then he goes to the British Embassy and he's trying to return home, and he like goes back onto Zora Trade and sees that he got like a bunch of money, and basically he was just betting on himself. So from that, he starts exploiting this loophole that's somehow a loophole, and starts hurting himself to get money. He gets into like a fight, he crashes a car, etc. There's no more etc. That's just the two examples he gave, but etc. And he says that it feels like addicting to change his misery into cold, hard cash, which is like, that's great. It's great, dude. You do you. He invests £1 million. I don't know the equivalents in American dollars. I assume it's almost as exact. And he jumps off a cliff. First, he like cuts off all of his ties with like friends and family for some reason, and then he jumps off the cliff. And then 2 days later, he wakes up from a coma, and his leg is amputated. Oh, that was a good stretch. Oh, and he's just full body injuries, and he's like, it's hurting, and he checks his phone and he sees he now owes £50 million because of suspicious account activity and insider trading. Insider trading, obviously, I should have looked this up to get like an exact idea, but insider trading is like people within the trading industry sharing secrets so they know what money to invest in getting rich off of that. And so he finishes his rant, gives his full name and his account number, and then the answer phone, Zora Trade answer phone, comes back in, and it says, "We're transferred to our adjustments department." He's like, "Okay, great." And then we hear like a chittering sound, and then he screams, asks for a nurse, and then the call ends. And in scene 4, Alice and Sam are talking about his date, and Sam asks Alice to be professional, but that hurt. And she says that she's happy that he's happy. And we hear a little glitch, a little tick in the recording, meaning she's lying. Which, like, obviously she is. Like, we don't need eye powers to know that. And He also mentions to Alice that he and Celia were discussing the validity of the cases. And Alice sort of like goes off on him. She's like, "You signed the Official Secrets Act, and you need to stop thinking about this statement. You need to stop." He was like, "Okay." And then the episode ends. Notes: Celia. This is a theory that is a little like painted by the fandom, because in the time between last episode and this episode, and like the hiatus as well, I was able to consume a little bit more of the fandom and their thoughts. I watched a video by Pinkalachi Art about a past Magnus Archives theories, and there's a lot of people gunning, like absolutely gunning for Agnes Montague to be like, this is how Agnes Montague can win. Which I never like. Yeah, I can see why Agnes Montague is a like interesting character, but I'm like, Annabelle Kane is right there. Annabelle Kane is right there, and she actually did win. Anyways, I learned a lot about people's theories and ideas about Agnes Montague, and especially once Celia came into the realm, into our consciousness, we obviously know that Celia is voice acted by Laurie Ann Davis, who also voice acted the Celia that we met in Magnus Archives 190. Things We Lose. Oh, I don't like that episode. I don't remember the name of it. Whatever, 190. Who is also the same voice actress for Lynn Hammond in episode 100. You Should Have Been There. And in Lynn Hammond, in that episode, she encounters a desolation ghost, and that desolation ghost, people are theorizing, is actually Agnes Montague, because I think she said like the date of it. The date is after Agnes died, and she was saying that she saw this desolation ghost, and people are thinking that it's Agnes Montague, and I can't say whether I believe that or not, because that was such a throwaway moment to me, and I think people are just making more out of it than they like. They're trying to put Agnes Montague in there, but like it doesn't hurt that she is or isn't that. If that's what people are theorizing, and there's nothing against it, and honestly, at that point, it's like it doesn't really matter. Then yeah, that's Agnes Montague. So I don't really like subscribe to that idea, but if a lot of people are thinking that it is Agnes Montague, then sure, it's Agnes Montague. So because of that, Lynn Hammond is connected to Agnes Montague, and Lynn Hammond is connected to Celia, and Celia is connected to Celia Ripley through the voice actress. Now, saying all that, Celia is connected to Agnes Montague, and her son is named Jack, and that is either a nod or a reference or a direct tie to Jack Barnabas, the statement giver of Magnus Archives 67 Burning Desires, question mark, question mark, question mark. All that being said, that all means for me that the name might be a normal name. You know, Johnny Sims and Alexander Newell know the like, we've had so many Michaels, we have so many repeat names and stuff like that. Having just a Jack here, who's a 1-year-old child, and a Jack all the way in episode 67, who kissed Agnes Montague and had half of his face burnt off, could mean nothing or could mean a lot. Specifically because Jack Barnabas was in a relationship briefly with Agnes Montague. Okay, my microphone died, so I didn't realize when it died. So we're getting raw phone noise. So sorry about that. God, where was I? Jack Barnabas connected to Agnes Montague, and Agnes Montague connected to Celia Ripley, this is how Axmatu can still win, I guess. Animal Cane is right there, guys. Animal Cane is right there. So yeah, the Jack child maybe is connected to Jack Barnabas. I did read some theories about him being Jack Barnabas himself, or direct ancestor or whatever. That is just a lot of conjecture. That is a lot of conjecture that I am not comfortable with, like, saying straight off. That's my theory. I'm like, from what we have in the statements, Jack is a name that is the same name as someone that the theories are attracted to. That's just what I'm gonna say right now. Celia and Sam's date. There's a moment when Celia and Sam are talking, and Sam's like, "Hey, why don't we tell us ourselves each other's like secrets before it gets awkward?" She's like, "Sure, whatever." And I don't know. There's a moment where she's like, "I'm a very mysterious woman," or whatever. Sounds very similar to the discussion Tim and Sasha. I'm gonna say Tam. Tim and Sasha had in episode 162, a cozy cabin. You know, where she's like, where they're like talking to each other and flirting, not flirting, just talking French. Really cute moment that both have very similar parallels for me. When Lena's talking to Gwen about the OIAR and what they do, she says there are opposing forces, and some of them are benevolent, some are not. And so, to my mind, that immediately conjures up the memory, I guess. It makes me think of episode 111, Family Business. And now in Family Business, Jerry is telling John about Smirks 14. Smirks 14 is a taxonomy. So, like I said in the beginning, I'm not sure. We're not sure if this taxonomy is in this world compared to the Magnus Archives world, and so we don't know if this taxonomy is the same here than it is there. So it might be different taxonomy. Either way, that the fears is definitely there. Like, they're there. That's something that's happening right now in the Magnus Protocol. In terms of benevolent forces, it makes me think of in 111, in Magnus Archives 111, when Jerry is telling John about Smirk 14, and John is about to ask something, and Jerry interrupts and says, "No, there are no forces of love or joy or whatever. It's only fear." Um, and so that makes me think of the benevolent forces are probably maybe forces of love and joy or whatever. But I don't really think that's true. I don't think that's something here. I think when she means opposing forces, forces is a very vague but still directed word, because forces can be made for a lot of different things, such as eldritch beings and also groups of people, right? And so when she says benevolent forces, to me, first thing I think of is like love and joy, forces that Jerry derides. But then I'm like, logically, it can't just be people that are fighting against the Eldritch powers, a la Gertrude Robertson, a la I would probably count Trevor Herbert and Julia Montauk because they do some of that as well, a la John and Martin and Basira and Melanie, Georgie, etc. in the Magnus Institute. I think for me, the most paragon of the forces of benevolent forces against the evil forces is Adelard Decker, because I have not heard, there's never been anything bad about Adelard Decker. And so that's who I'm thinking is like the idea of the benevolent forces that Lena is trying to communicate. And the way that she says opposing forces is to sort of have that sort of vagueness, but still directness that Gwen needs, the directness, but the vagueness that Lena does not want to give full answer for now, up until Gwen understands more, has more things to be understood about. And when she says that they manage the bad guys, to me, that sounds like something akin to Tragedy of the Commons. Now, Tragedy of the Commons is a concept that I learned in my biology studies, which is when there is a public resource that is used by the public. If it is not managed correctly, it will be depleted. For example, a fishing pond, a fishing lake. If a community requires the fish to be fed, the water to be drunk, other sort of resources that a lake gives, the tragedy of the commons occurs when the common people, the people using the resource, overuse the resource and deplete it. Say, for example, fishermen overfishing, and then all of a sudden there are no more fish to fish, so that you cannot eat fish. So there is no more resource, which is fish. In those instances, there is a requirement of management, someone to control how much resource is taken from the resource to make sure the resource is not depleted. If a fisherman is told that he cannot take as much, he can only take like this amount, it's to make sure that whatever is not taken is able to replenish for the next time, so you can take that same amount, and therefore nothing runs out. To me, what Lena's saying in terms of managing bad guys sounds very similar to that tragedy of the commons. In the Magnus archives, there was no one managing the fears. There was no one managing avatars, agents of the fears that wanted to do rituals. And what we learned eventually in season 5, once all of the fears came and the apocalypse occurred, it is a finite resource. Eventually, people are going, like, the end requires death, permanent. And eventually, for the fear of the end to be fed, it must happen. And eventually in the future, everyone will die. And that is a finite resource. And so what it looks like they're trying to do is to avoid that sort of, even outside of the apocalypse, the fact that there's so many people attempting rituals and so many attempts at rituals, almost like, okay, let's do a little quiz. Gertrude stopped the rituals of the buried, the spiral, the dark. She didn't really have to do anything for that, but she was there for that. The desolation was the only one on the top of my head. The slaughter, the hunt, and the vast were stopped on their own. And the first stranger ritual was also stopped on, like, by something else that was not like a main character. The second stranger ritual also was stopped by, obviously John Sims. The web and the end don't have rituals, and the corruption ritual was, I guess, stopped by John incidentally. But that's also sort of like iffy. The eye collapsed upon itself. Gertrude also stopped the flesh. I'm remembering. I'm counting on my fingers. And the lonely. That's the last one I was forgetting. Gertrude also stopped the lonely. Why was I listening to this? Why was I listening to this? Yes. Benevolent forces. Yeah. And tragedy of the commons. Yes. People stopped the rituals from happening. If there's someone who is managing the fears, managing the avatars, managing how and when they consume and take from people, how much fear is being generated, then there is enough. Let's put this in terms of resource. There is resource of the world, right? They are giving them enough of fear to be fine, fed, enough for them for not to be reaching for more, and enough for them to not want for more. Like, it is just enough that like the world can continue working by itself, just enough that there is enough fear for the fears to, like, feed on, but not enough for it to deplete the resource. So that's sort of my, like, biology moment for Lena and the tragedy of the commons managing the bad guys. Which honestly, I just thought of that. I literally just remembered about tragedy of the commons and managing the fears, because when they talked about, like, managing, I was like a singer, like they're managing a singer. But no, this is like resource management, which I like that idea. I like that idea that there is a like this government organization works to make sure that there are, if anything, no attempts at rituals, or enough fear that a ritual is not needed, and to avoid an apocalypse situation. There's three fingers. Three fingers. So, yes, that big brain moment for me in that moment. Anyways. And so the entity that I think this episode is concerning is, well, like in terms of the statement of itself, I don't have much to say about it. It's pretty straightforward, and there's nothing like confusing about it for me or interesting. It was a good statement. It was a good episode. I don't really have anything to say about it. Besides, like the entity, the web deals with addiction, which is a heavy topic, heavy subject within the statement. Like addiction is like why he continues doing stuff. However, there like I don't really see any like fear in his in what is happening, and so I don't know what that means. I know there's like theories around, but I haven't consumed them because I don't want to consume them because I want them to be raw. But this is the first one I'm like, there's not really that much fear occurring, you know? Similar to like making adjustments. There I flipped right through that. Did you guys see that? I flipped right to that. There's not much fear here about the flush, but it is sort of like she scares someone, but herself is not scared. There's just scary things happening, but the people, the like subjects are not being afraid or something like that. The only one difference I can think of like off the top is because I have it right in front of me is instructions needles. Like the person needles specifically says I don't care about the pain or whatever. It's the fear that they have is what I'm feeding on. But here and specifically this one, there's not that much fear happening. So I'm interested as to the taxonomy and what the fears are doing and stuff like that. Obviously, we don't know enough. I don't know enough to go on, but that's just the thing that I'm thinking of. In the end, Darian gets killed or taken, which is effectively the same, by a chittering thing that's like metallic. And it might be spiders, but it could be biased. Obviously, the web has a lot of spider imagery. We heard something coming out of the phone, and like I said, I might be biased in trying to find the motifs of the fears of the web and etc. But it might not be that. It might be some other insect. It was definitely insectoid. Um, Spiders are arachnids. Whatever. That like it might be a spider. It might not be. I'm biased, but I do think it is a spider. Sam's gifted status and not being in the institute means something to me because we got in Rolling With It a description of how the Magnus Institute cataloged things. It was definitely like they're trying to create something, trying to teach something, and maybe like he's like too well adjusted or he's not like a blank slate. They're trying to create something, and he was just not the person that they could create things with. Like he was gifted and stuff like that, so he's probably already like well established amongst within himself. He knows who he is, or at least he's getting to that point. And so they probably wouldn't want him because he would not be a good test subject or whatever to create. Like my theory is that they're trying to create avatars, and that could fit alongside the theory of Tragedy of the Commons that I just thought of, in terms of they're trying to make people that they control to make sure there is no one that they cannot control. Maybe, maybe not. I do not know. That's the end of my notes. I like this episode. It was really cool, and yeah, this episode was really fun. I was listening to it on my phone. I was listening to it while I was riding my bike, so it felt fresh, new, and I can't wait for the next episode. So I will see you back in episode 14. Alright, I should not have waited this long to record. It is very late. Now it's just lazy. That's fine. Episode 14, Pet Project. CAT1RB4426, and then the dates, numbers. Transformation, parentheses, snake, // horde. Category 1 is agent for the shop owner. Rank B, death 4, pain 4, helplessness 2, weird 6. This story is written by Sean Pellington, who is the head writer of a podcast in Rusty Quill's repertoire, whose name escapes me right now, but it's this podcast. I personally have not listened to this podcast, but I've heard of it. So go check it out to support him. This episode aired May 2nd, 2024. Brief summary: Snake Man in pet shop, and the possible entity is the corruption. In scene 1, Alice and Celia are in the break room, and Alice is being snipey. Like, every time Celia says something, she's like, yeah. Or, like, she's like, oh, I'm grateful that this happens. She's like, you should be, or whatever. And she's like, she's taking some jabs. She's taking some jabs at Celia. And during this conversation, somehow Alice is goaded into asking about the date, because she was just like, how's it been? And Celia's like, oh, and Celia mentions how they just talked about the cases, and talked about how Sam is and stuff like that, and mentions that he'll do better next time, which makes Alice like surprisingly awkward, like surprised and then awkward at that. And Celia asks if there's a problem with them dating, because obviously Alice and Sam have a history in the past. And Alice panics, makes a joke about falling in love with Celia, and leaves. Does that mean she has an actual crush on her? I don't know. Maybe, probably. But it's definitely, she makes a joke about it in a way to deflect and runs away. In scene 2, Sam is just typing on his computer, and Lena interrupts him and asks after Gwen, and he says he hasn't seen her, and he'll send her to Lena when she does arrive. And Lena says, "Okay, great," and leaves. And then Chester/John begins to read another report, another case, and this is a report. Which is a treatment report from Elima Pest Ltd, like Pest Control Service. Jordan Kennedy. No, he's not here. It's written by the technician, who is Alyssa Beck, and the client is Anthony Walker. The client of the shop is the shop owner. There is a note that there's a follow-up requested for the call to Resounding Reptile Emporium, but the follow-up is postponed until the location of Alyssa Beck is determined. At 15:30, which is 3:30, she gets a call from the client about a rat in a break room, and she meets with Mr. Walker, who has like red/sore patches on his neck, that's like from that he's been itching at, and she says it's probably from like the heat wave, and also like thinking that he got infected by the rat or not. There is a strong odor, and she said that the Reptile Emporium is below recommendations in terms of health safety, I believe. And she requests to clear the shop, and Mr. Walker is not happy about that, and he mentions his burden. And there's a brief altercation where he scratches her on like the arm or something. But she's like, I don't have to do a report on that. He just got a little heated. At 15:41, she's in the break room, and she sees multiple open food sources, and she spots ants and an open window. At 15:40, the further infection finds a squirrel droppings found in an overhead cabinet, which is ill. There's a window left open so that it could like escape, and the area was sealed. In 16:10, she gets a trap. She allows the shop owner, Mr. Walker, to open up the shop once more because she knows where the incident is, so that it's fine. So she sees some customers enter the store.
And she finds a hole where the squirrel entered, which was from an adjacent room that was locked, and that she locked, and she will seal the hole later. I believe it was that. So there was the open window and then the hole into the other room. She closed the door, closed the window where the squirrel went in, and she was gonna seal the hole that the squirrel went into after, which she tries to capture the squirrel. 1630, she captures a squirrel, and she says she will seal the ingress hole after removal. And she says the squirrel's like kind of lethargic, and then it stops, and the warden becomes more personal and more panicked. And she says that she called the police, but she couldn't hear anything. It was just static or noise. And she says, "This is a message for my father, who would believe her and says it's not his fault." There's an emphasis on that, which is interesting, which I feel like is something that we should pay attention to for the future, or at least a little small world building that doesn't pay off in the future, but is definitely helpful to make sure why she's doing this sort of tale, this message. The adjacent room that she was in that had the hole in it is like a makeshift CCTV office. And while she was there, she saw on the camera Mr. Walker almost basically try to assault a man who's there with his daughter, who he was trying to like push a snake onto, like push them to buy a snake, and they weren't having it, I guess. And he got a little aggressive and lunge at them. He lunges at the man. He breaks the glass and releases a bunch of crickets. And the customers escape, and the man sort of like tries to get at them again, but falls again. And he's just on the floor. I think the door hits him, and he's just on the floor. And she sees that he's like all bloated and swollen around the neck, like those cartoons whenever they like Tom and Jerry, whenever Jerry eats like the a triangle cheese and it just expands his body like that. That's what I imagined his neck looked like. And she sees that something falls from his mouth, but she can't see what it is. The TV, the CCTV camera is too grainy and too bad to be able to see what it is. But we can infer, because right after that, on the floor, Mr. Walker begins twitching and spasming, and his mouth opens, and snakes start to pull out of his mouth. And they just like fill the entire, like, I guess, room in a way. The floor, there's so much, there's so many snakes coming out of this man's one body. Um, snakes, snakes in a plane, but the plane equals Onika Snake's Burgers. Then she sees that the body is being pulled towards her, and she like locks the doors really quickly, and she like starts panicking. She's like, "I see some rejection letters from some institute. Oh, some institute. It's a random institute. Oh." And she says it's very hot, and she feels her throat swelling as well and itching as well. And then she sort of just, "Oh, I didn't seal that hole," and then it just cuts off. Like she says, "I love you, Dad." So she got eaten by snakes. Scene three, Sam reacts to it, and he tries to convince himself that it's any other institute, that the letters or rejection letters from any other institute in the I guess this is Manchester, London, Manchester area, UK, Ireland in general. Uh, good. You can try to do that, bud. And then Gwen suddenly scares him when she appears, and she rattles off how to classify it, which I loved when she said, she like appeared, and her like I guess she listened to the entire thing or whatever, and she was like, so, oh, it's a bunch of snakes. What's a collective of a snake? A horde, probably. I think the letters are separate, unless you want to count that subsection, whatever. And I'm like, that rattling off is like, ooh, that's just someone who's like so smart, is like, da, 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 and I loved that. I love a woman who is so embridled in the horror. Um, and then Sam tells her about Lena, and she's like, okay. And when they're talking, they both get frustrated because uh, she doesn't think he's ready for the knowledge, and he doesn't like think she's like ready for it. It was just getting frustrated at each other because neither understand what it's like. Oh, the melodrama. And then the episode ends. I honestly don't really have that much notes to tell about this episode. It was a really good episode. I just don't really have anything stated. Nothing really illuminated besides the progression of the office drama, office politic of Celia, Alice, and Sam, and Gwen by an extension. Where's Colin? Where's Colin? I haven't seen him in a hot minute, and I I assume he's being really successful in not being picked up by the camera, so he's doing something off screen. He's not dead. I hope not, because I liked his character. But where is he? But it's whatever. The notes and letters are obviously the Magnus Institute. Sam's just deluding himself. That is obviously the Magnus Institute. Um, and yeah, this event occurred 4 years before the fire in 1999 in Manchester. Um, this episode, it's corruption, I would say. I mean, there's itching, there's heat, there's infection, there's insects. Snakes is a new one. I remember in the wiki page for episode 149, Concrete Jungle, there was a mention that that episode is the only episode that had snakes, which is a very common phobia. And we're getting a lot of snakes now. I mean, Ink Five has a snake tattoo, and now these snakes as well. So we're getting more snakes here. Snake rights, you know. But the snakes obviously are not tied to one single entity. I could make a uh argument that the hunt is represented here because snakes hunt are predators and stuff. Maybe, but it's like it's mostly corruption, especially with the itching and the scratching and the heat and the all that. The crickets, so many crickets. Yeah, gross. And I just have a question. Did Gwen just come back from the external that she was sent to last episode or not? I wonder what that is. Also I didn't write it down. The rejection letters. Is that a rejection letter for like an animal or himself or something like that? That's something to note. But yeah, I like this episode. It was nice. I just don't really have that much to say to it because there's not much things to explore here. But it's really good character building, at least character dynamic building and destroying as well. So yeah, I'll see you in episode 15. Okay. Oh, sorry, I had to get into uniform. So, funny thing, I didn't realize when I filled my second video for episode 14, right? 14, this is 15. I didn't realize I was wearing the same shirt. And I mean, I knew I was going to be in the same place, but I didn't realize I was going to wear the same shirt. So I think it's just funny that I'm just going to wear it again for the next two recordings. Because I think that's just kind of funny. And unlike last time, I do have another Publix brand juice. It is a normal mango flavored lemonade. I could not find the one that I had before, which was so good. But this one is still fine enough for what I need. This one's going to be a hefty one, so let's get started. Episode 15, well run. CAT1RB dash 6451 dash numbers. I don't know why there is a dash between RB and a DPHW. Let me just dissect this a little bit more. So the description is hunt parentheses aristocratic dash slash dash compulsion. CAT1 category 1 is for agent Lady Mowbray, obviously. Rank B dash question mark I don't know if it's supposed to be separating B rank B with the DPHW, or is it like a censor for like rank B number here but censored or something like that? I don't know. I don't want to say it is a typo, but it might be. I'm running on very little information anyways, so I can't really say if it's a typo or not. But it's definitely something interesting to note. The DPHW death is 6, pain is 4, helplessness 5, weird 1. I get pain. I don't get pain being 4 because there's not much painful happening here. He's just afraid and running, being hunted. Death 6. A lot. 5 people died. 5 people died. So 6 actually, but whatever. Weird 1. Yeah, this is the most quote unquote grounded thing. Like this is a story that you could see happening in real life, quote unquote, in terms of there's nothing super outwardly supernatural, you know? So I get weird being 1. That makes sense to me. And unfortunately, last recording, I was super tired, so I did not read out the dates, but I will read it now this time. June 6th, 2023 is when this event occurred, and this was cataloged March 22nd, 2024, which is 7 days. A week has passed since the last episode. I liked how in the beginning the episodes sort of ran alongside in tandem with the actual dates, but due to the constraints of the story, they've had to do it more closer, like well, we just moved faster than they did in terms of time. But that's just how it is. I liked how like there's some episodes were like cataloged the same day that they came out, quote unquote, but you know, it was just a fun little quirky thing that happened. The author of this story is Alexander J. Newell. This aired May 9th, 2024. We are now 2 months ahead of the characters, unless there's like a time skip sometime later in the series. Brief summary. This is the intro of Lady Mowbray. The possible entity is the Hunt. So scene 1 begins with Sam and Celia in the break room, and Sam's flirting, which is a very, very like new thing for me to see of him. So he asks Celia out with tickets to the theater for Pillow Man, which Celia is like, "Oh, Pillow Man," and he's like, "Yeah, I don't really know anything about it, but it sounds cute." She's like, "That's a great choice for a first date. I'll come just so I can see your face." I never heard of Pillow Man. I had to look it up. Pillow Man is a 2003 play written by this author. I forgot to write it down. Sorry about that. And it is about the play is an interrogation of a fiction writer living in a police state whose stories have similarities to some local murders of minors. So yeah, that's a great second date for y'all. Sam, he's trying, you know. Alice interrupts them and invites them to see Penny for the Wall, which is a band, at the Gladstone Armstat at 10:30 p.m. tomorrow, which is where her brother Luke is performing. We remember Luke from prior episodes when he calls on Sam, and for the majority, I think he's just asking for money or something like that. But we'll get to see him. Celia says that she can't go, and Alice is like, "Oh, well, the good part is it's after you guys have your theater show." So, and Celia's like, "Actually, my sitter can't stay that long, but tell me in the future in advance, and I can set something up." And Alice is like, "What's that sound of the computer processing?" That's what Alice is right now. And yeah, so Celia tells Alice that she has a baby. That's gonna come back. Alice is gonna say something to Sam about Celia having a baby, and it's gonna be cringy. And I can't wait to be there for that. In scene 2, we begin the case being read out, which is a recording of a voicemail of Sentinel Tip-Off Hotline, where you can give info that merits investigation, but they will like go to police if there's any like serious crimes. So this is like a neighborhood watch type of deal. Um, and it's a caterer who begins describing his work. Uh, he says people need to know about what's happening, what they're doing, etc., etc. In his like line of work, there's only 6 permanent staff, him included, so 5 other people plus him. They go to an event at Witchwood Hall in the Cotswolds. Yeah. And it's like a family shoot. So usually they prepared like the game. So the people go out to shoot at the wild animals and they quote capture them and then put them away, and the caterers put out food that looks like the things that they captured so that they believe that they ate the things that they shot. But obviously they don't because it's messy. Sometimes they're a little bit more peculiar about it, more particular about it, especially if they're super rich. And so this time they say it's not, it's probably not going to be a swap or something like that, or if it's going to be larger game at least. That's a lot of setup, and it costs a lot more. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Well, if you guys pay for it, that's sure we can do that. And they get there and they're setting him in a gazebo, and there's the butler who's like very dour, and he's just telling them what to do. And they begin setting up, but as they're setting up and cooking and stuff, no one is shooting, and he's like, they gotta start soon or else there's not gonna be any food. So they call the butler again, and the butler arrives all still dour, and he's like, prepare, and then leaves, which is okay, weird. And at sunset, all the guests come out, and they're led by a matriarch who I'll say now is just Lady Mabry, obviously, with a huge gun. And I like the description of it, where it's like it's a huge gun that's like really intricate but painted really dull. So it's definitely not a gun for show. It's a gun for shooting, and that concept of like a gun for show versus a gun for shooting, I like that. Like concept being brought to light in a way. So, and all the staff and the security not part of the catering company just leaves, gets up and leaves, goes to the house, and then all the people that are shooting are like in a line in front of them. All of a sudden, they point their guns at the caterers, which is scary. And Lady Mabry says, "Hunt," to them. And after nothing happens, after they sort of like, what do we do? What do we do? She points her gun and shoots Steven, who's 23, with a headshot. And then she points her gun at the narrator, who we don't get a name of, and she says, "Hunt." And the narrator tries to say something, but she like shuts him down without saying a word. And he says that he couldn't say anything, and it's really cool how I can't tell if it's him being afraid and her motion like shutting him down because of his fear, or her power shutting him down. It's ambiguous about that, and I do enjoy that. And so he takes a cleaver and kills Marcus, stabbing him in the neck. Stab is not stab slicing. It's a slicing thing, but he's just in the neck. Whatever. Yes. And then the rest of the staff runs, and he describes in very small detail how he kills Deborah, who's in her 50s, up in a tree. Miro, who trips and falls, and then Boris, who's like 6'5", and he almost gives him some issue, but he does kill him anyways. And he comes back, he's covered in blood or something. He mentions that they must have eaten good, so that's sort of like, okay, they're cannibals, I guess, or something. He comes back to the house and starts packing up, and the butler gives him a note. I think Lady Mabry's still there as well, but the butler gives him a note with cash, like a bunch of cash, and a note that says, "Run." And so he does. So now we like finish his story, and he's just commenting about what his situation right now. We can hear like small sounds of rain in the like outside, muffled rain noise. And he's like, "Yeah, I've been moving, and I keep hearing dogs barking or something else." dot dot dot. And he says he's gonna flee the country, but all of a sudden we hear glass shatter as there's a gunshot and blood splatter. Presumably the guy is getting shot. And then there's rain, louder sounds of rain, so like the window was broken. And we hear a voice who is Lady Mowbray saying, "Well run, dear, well run." And that's the end of the case. In scene 3, we begin with Celia being extremely disturbed at this occurrence. And then she's surprised when Lady Mowbray herself appears in the OIAR with her dogs. And it seems like it seems almost like Celia was like in the computer, and then Lady Mowbray was like, "Ooh, what is that?" And that's what it seemed like. And then Celia was like, "Whoa, hello, hello." Lady Mowbray is like, "And what was your? I didn't hear your name. You didn't give me your name." And Celia was like, "I didn't give you my name. I didn't." Lady Mowbray says, "Quote, we are an odd one, aren't we?" About Celia. And she keeps like sniffing her, like inhaling it. And Celia says, "You're not allowed to be in here." Lady Mowbray says she was invited. She keeps sniffing. And she says she smells something different about Celia. Like she says she's a fine specimen, strong and different. And then she says, "What is that?" As if she's like detecting something. But before she's able to do that, she's interrupted by Gwen, who's like,
Lady Mowbray?
and Lady Mowbray says, "Oh, it's you," or whatever. They start talking, and then Lady Mowbray turns back to Celia and says, "We'll see each other next time." And Celia says, "No, you won't." And then as they're leaving, Mowbray asks if Gwen is a Cheshire Bouchard. And the door closes, and then Celia is just shaken as she like returns to her work. In scene 4, at a very short scene, we're in a club just as like the music is ending, the live band is ending, and then Luke, finally we have the voice actor for Luke, who is Yannick Gonti. Luke reunites with Alice, and they talk about their band getting more popular, and they have drinks together. In scene 5, presumably some minutes or hours later, we hear a tape recorder turn on, and we hear the voice of a woman intoning and chanting. And it sounds like a fear domain. It has dreamy language, and it's like telling someone about a nightmare. I'll get more into it when I go into my notes section. Um, and Alice appears, and she asks if the woman, is okay, but gets grabbed by the woman, and she begins to choke on water, and it's like she's drowning. And Alice calls for an ambulance, and she begins chest compression, CPR, using the Nelly the Elephant song, which I didn't know about before this episode, except for one one Adventuring Party Dimension 20 episode, where Siobhan Thompson, who's the only British person in that cast, they're talking about CPR, and she's like, in England we do Nelly the Elephant went to the circus, the circus, and yeah, that's how I know about Nelly the Elephant before this episode, which I find hilarious. And she like is trying to save this person, and then she finds a tape recorder, like picks it up and is like, "What the fuck is this?" And she's like confused, and the woman wakes up all of a sudden, and she keeps intoning, and then Alice is like, I can't," and she runs away. And that's the end of the episode. Notes: Celia is not keeping Jack a secret, which is not a surprise, but definitely like, oh, okay, interesting. So it's not something that she's trying to hide. It's just a part of her character. So this seems to be less of a like Jack becoming. I I was thinking she was lying. I was thinking she was lying about Jack, but it might be that she's not actually lying. But I don't know. I don't know what to believe at this point. But because she like openly talks about having a sitter and stuff like that, it makes sense. Or she could be lying about the sitter, and she has to actually do stuff after that night, and she can't be in this dimension after a certain point of time because she is not from this dimension. She's from another dimension. She's jumping around and doing different dimensions and stuff. And I will figure it out. The Sentinel Tip-Off Hotline, it's a great source for these kinds of stories. Hopefully, we'll come back. I can see this being. I can see another case like coming up that it's like another recording of this hotline, and the voice actor for the hotline is Jesse Hawk, and I don't know if they're going to come back or not. They seemed less of a person as the Zora trader answer phone in 13 Futures, but we'll see exactly what happens in the future. It could just be a runoff sort of thing, one-off sort of thing. The caterer sounded so similar to Timothy Stoker's voice actor, Mike LeBeau. Mike LeBeau. His voice actor is Danny Scarn. Um, and I was listening to this episode while I was riding my bike, and I got to a three-way stop. T T. I got to a three-way stop, and I was doing the cross when his voice was appearing. And I could have sworn it was Timothy Stoker. I could have sworn. I was like, oh my god, is this Timothy Stoker? He just has the exact same accent, regional accent, as Mike LeBeau, as Timothy Stoker. So I got really excited for that. And I was like, maybe he's just doing like a slightly deeper interpretation of Timothy or whatever. And like, what if there's parallels of where people are in this world compared to the Magnus archives, and well, would it be so crazy that Timothy Stoker became a caterer after failing in his academic endeavors or whatever? But no, it's not Timothy Stoker. I thought it was, but it wasn't. Now that I'm talking about voice actors, at least, Lady Mowbray. Finally, we get Lady Mowbray because when the show was first announced, we did get a cast list, and this is where we got Lorianne Davies as Celia Ripley, which everyone was all like, "Whoa, what is that? What does that mean?" And where we got Ellie Dickens as the voice actor for Lady Mowbray. This case, Hunt, the Hunt, duh. Come on, it's the Hunt. It's very similar to Thrill of the Chase, episode 112 of the Magnus archives. There's other similarities with other Hunt. The Hunt is a very easy depiction of horror. I could see elements of the slaughter here, specifically by the compulsion of the caterer to kill his friends. But no, I mean it's mostly entirely the Hunt here. Another embarrassing moment for me is when Lady Mowbray crashes into the recording and kills the caterer. I thought it was Gertrude. I thought it was Sue Sims voice acting as Gertrude Robinson, and I was like, Gertrude Robinson's part of the Hunt? But no. Again, riding my bike and not listening fully, and old British lady voice got confused. Listen. When I went to Epcot and I rode that ride in the Epcot ball and I heard an old British woman, I did instinctively turn to my boyfriend. I was like, I thought this was Gertrude Robinson. Anyways, Celia and Mowbray's interaction, I love. I love this interaction between these two of them because it's less like monster to human. Say, for example, because I just re-listened to that episode when Tim and Martin interact with Michael. They don't know anything. Michael is a monster, and they are like Michael and Tim and Martin in terms of power level. This didn't seem like that sort of interaction. This seemed like an avatar to avatar conversation. Say, for example, Elias and Peter, or later seasons John and Peter, or Jude and John, or whatever. They seem to be two people who have almost equal standing / power, and the way that they interact, right? Because if, say, for example, Lady Mowbray interacted with Alice, probably or Sam. Let's do Sam because Sam is more of a neutral party, quote unquote. And obviously, this may be coded with the idea that Celia just listened to this episode, but still, if Lady Mowbray had interacted with anyone else, they would have reacted more with fear, confusion, or suspicion. But the way that Celia reacts with determination, with resolve, means more to me. Celia has some form of power, whether it's knowledge or otherwise an unknown. But Celia's response is someone who is familiar with eldritch powers powering others. So, for example, when she says, "You're not allowed to be here," someone who wouldn't know about these things, Sam, Alice, would not say, "You're not allowed to be here." They'd be like, "Can I help you?" or whatever, or "We're closed right now." But no, specifically, "You are not allowed to be here" sounds like a thing that someone says if they know that they're being protected by an eldritch being. The OIAR is something special. What, like Switzerland? They manage the bad people, right? So "You're not allowed to be here" has a lot more weight because of all that. When Lady Marbury says, "I'll see you later," and Celia says, "No, you won't," that is not wishful thinking. That is not like being afraid of. Celia is like, "You will not see me. Period." That's because she has something powerful. And power in terms of knowledge. I'm not saying she's like an avatar, but she definitely has knowledge about the entities enough to be able to levy these sort of threats or counter these sort of threats. Also, Lady Marbury smells something in her, about her. Like, Lady Marbury is a avatar of the hunt. Like, Daisy would know that someone is a monster the first time they met. And because that's just what they do, that's what they can do. Lady Marbury smelled something within Celia, which means Celia is something. And I'm very excited to know what that is. I looked I looked into it. I looked into it. This episode is the first mention in story that Gwen's last name is Bouchard, which would I want to be in the universe where somehow the Rusty Quill crew, Johnny Sims, Martin K. Blackwood, sorry, Alexander J. Newell, Jesus. I want to be in reality where they wanted to keep the secret until this episode when it became apparent that she's a Bouchard and kept her name secret. Whenever they would credit her, they would say Anusha Batterby as Gwen blank because her last name it does not appear in any other space. Does not appear in text. Only appears in credits. Only appears within the casting announcement. And so I think this would have been a great moment for them to reveal that she is a Bouchard. Because imagine the fan craze that not knowing her last name, knowing everyone else's last name, not knowing the last name would have made the fans, us, insane. And nothing would have had to change in the text. Nothing would have had to change because we already got a lot of talk of nepotism and rich families and stuff like that about Gwen in particular, but no mention of Bouchard. So people would definitely be theorizing. I could see people theorizing that she was actually a Magnus, or that she was a Sims, or that she was a whatever last name connected to story. And Bouchard would definitely be a theory. And then this would been a great moment to reveal that she is a Bouchard because it's connected to the aristocracy, to the rich people, especially because this episode is very rich people-y. And yeah, I think I want to be in that sort of. I think that would have been really cool. But the fact is, the first time in text that we get her last name is kind of crazy, and it means something that it's gonna come back again. I just don't know how. I'm just saying what I feel about Gwen Bouchard. I love Gwen. Another embarrassing moment. I thought the drowning woman was voiced by Beth Erie, who voices the error. The voice actress for the drowned woman is actually Lara Sawala, and I thought it was Beth Erie. I swear I could have sworn to you more seriously than me thinking that it was Timothy Stoker as the caterer, and more seriously as Gertrude Robinson as Lady Mowbray at the end of the statement. I could have sworn this was Beth Erie, especially because I listened to that, and then I was on my bike ride, and I was like, let me listen to that one episode. And I listened to 130 Meet when Beth Erie's talking. Beth Erie is someone Wright. This Wright. This is her the first name, last name Wright. About the last feast ritual of the flesh. I could have sworn it was the same voice actress, but it's not. It's not. I thought this was connected to the air, but it's not. And yeah, this sounds like a victim in a domain in season 5. So I did want to read it to you because the best way you can learn something, the best way you can internalize something is to teach it to somebody else. And that's how I did a lot of my studying when I was in college. And that's what I'm going to do right now. That's why I'm retaining a lot more in my mind because I'm doing these videos. So I want to read this because it's also really well written. So here we go. I have not drinking much of my juice. My throat is so dry. Public sponsor me. The second time is up. I try to grasp the air and fill my lungs that burn and rattle full. I can't. There's so much air, but none inside as I go down. Again, the cold surrounds and drags me down. The blue, the black, the weight of all the sudden fates awaiting me below the line of sea and sky. I kick, I lunge, I flail towards the brightened blue and break the third and final time. I know I'm spent. There's no more within me save the salt-spun death that reaches down my throat and spasms in my chest, that cannot breathe inside me, coughs and sputters and tries to push it out, but more comes in and down. I go the third and final time. I know it's done. I'm done. The water is dark. And that's when she collapses on the ground and begins wheezing and choking, drowning. And when Alice does her compressions, she wakes back up again and continues. Deeper, deeper, down among the dead and swollen flesh, so pale within this lightless place where eyes are open, cloudy white, and all the water pushes down upon a lifeless form that sinks and sinks down to the bottom that is not there. No sandy grave below the swell, no rest among the coral in the depths I feared so much, but reached up and overland to claim me still. Ooh, love that. Stan, awesome party. Stop recording. Out of camera frame, David. Anyways, so the victim's chant. I tried writing down some of the lines that I popped out to me. Fill lungs that burn and rattle full. Sounds. Okay, hold on. So much air, none inside. Weight of all sudden fate reaches down my throat. Water is dark. Among the dead and swollen flesh, where eyes are open, cloudy white. No sandy grave, the depths I feared so much, but reach up and overland to claim me still. This is someone, to me, the way that it's written, the way that it's performed, the way that it is told, like I said before, sounds like someone stuck inside a domain. This is kind of descriptive imagery that John would spat out during his travels in the apocalypse. This is the sound of someone trapped within a horrible nightmare of being drowned and not finding any respite. And um it's very buried. It's very the buried. It's very that there's some elements of the vest, some elements of the eye, some elements of the end, but mostly buried. And this very much seems very similar to Adrift. I think that's 195, I want to say. Adrift. And it seems like someone who's trapped in a fear domain. But how are they trapped in the real life? And how is Alice being able to like do all that, try to save them, but they won't get out? And the way that she dies and then comes back to life, quote unquote, dies, chokes, comes back to life, whatever. It feels very like a fear domain. And it's also very similar to the way that Gordy was talking about the nautical horror in episode 11 Marked. And so I could go into a lot of theory craft. And my biggest theory, similar to that of Celia, is that things are coming from a different dimension into this one. Now, this seems to be more of a bleed through in a way. I could see this as John passing this depiction of horror onto someone unsuspecting. I can see this as the error, Bethiri, that appeared, putting this into somebody or something else. Or this woman is directly from the fear domain and just got spat out and is still stuck in that. And there's a lot that we do not know. There's a lot that I do not know. And it's amazing. It's so cool. Did you hear that crack in my back? It was so cool. It's so terrifying. I absolutely adore the things that they're trying to do with this series. I'm so excited for the next episode. And I'm gonna get editing on this soon after I finish videoing it. And that's the end of the episode. This was a very British episode, I have to say. Like Pillowman, which is British play. Well Run, the title of it, anyways, is a British saying. I don't. Maybe aristocrat. Maybe an American aristocrat would say well run as well, but I think you mostly hear it with British people. British accents getting the best of me. Very British. The Nelly the elephant thing, very British. But yeah, this episode hit us on the head about how British it was, and that was pretty good for it too. Yes, that is the last. That's that episode, and one more episode before I get to finish this and release this. So I'll see you for episode 16. Hello, episode 16, Antisocial. We are back. This is finally the last episode that I can do for this video. And we are completing the quad with my Chamberlain. This is my high school shirt. I use it as a pajama shirt. What's it say there? I forget what it says, but that is my shirt. That is my uniform for these 4 episodes. So yes, if you hear my washing machine, no, you don't. Episode 16, Antisocial, CAT1RB1565, tattoo parentheses influencer -- cardiac. Category 1 is an agent, Inc. 5 here, and it's a rank B. Death 1, pain 5, helplessness 6, weird 5. Oh yes, this time I just have my water. No Publix yet today. The event of this date occurred October 30th, 2024, and the catalogization of this statement was March 25th, 2024. The author was Alexander J. Newell. This aired May 15th, 2024. Brief summary. Inc. 5 Ool claims another victim, and the entity or possible entities. I have the flesh, or the corruption, or the end. Eesh. So, we'll talk about that. In the first scene, we have Sam and Celia comforting Alice after her encounter with the drowned woman. This is assuming the day after of the morning or night after. I forget exactly how that works with their schedule, but yeah, she's reacting very viscerally, so it just happened. She says she hasn't seen anyone die since ... and I put, like, my guess is her parents. She probably saw her parents die, and Sam is like, yeah, I know, or like, he knows what she's talking about without having to say it. So it's definitely something about their past. I'd wager they're her parents. She says that she returned to the drowned woman because she, felt bad about her, and the tape player was gone, and the paramedics eventually showed up, and they said that the drowned woman, had been dead for ages. She'd been drowned and dead for ages, and they thought Alice was in shock because they said that the woman had too much water in her lungs, so it was impossible to even be speaking at all. Which, oof. Celia believes her, and so does Sam, but probably in different ways. Like, Sam probably believes that she heard the woman speaking, but he probably thinks it's like normal stuff. Like, she just happened to be able to speak, even though she was like had a bunch of water in her chest. Celia knows about the paranormal. What? That's okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Say hi to the camera.
Hi.
That was my boyfriend. Anyways, Celia knows about the paranormal, so she's like, yeah, you saw something paranormal, but she's not telling Alice that because she doesn't want to hear that, obviously. And then Alice is like, I'm fine. Let me just get to work now because it's gonna get a lot worse if I don't do my work now. And we begin with a like really fun duel telling the story where we have in scene 2 Chester/John reading out like it looks like a page, like account page for a goth influencer named Madame Electrum. I think Madam's supposed to be spelled with an E at the end, but it's just Madam. Who's voice acted by Kai Griffin or Key Griffin. Um, and it's a tattoo reveal with Ink 5O. Yes, I know that they say it Ink Soul. Ink Soul is a much faster, but it's written Ink 5O. They say in the transcript, note Ink Soul, Ink 5O is read as Ink Soul, but Ink 5O is much funnier to me. Ink 5O is voiced by Vera Chop, and this is a video with Ink 5O, who's like the transcript makes it a point to say that they're very aloof and cold towards Madame E. And they start giving Madame E the tattoo, and she gasps in pain, and there's a quick cut to the end, and we get her like reaction. She's surprised at the result, and then she's told by Ink 5O to get out. And the video ends there. That video occurred on October 30th. And then the next video talks about the rumors about Ink 5O. This was posted on December 19th, 2023. And she says she was in a situationship actually with them, but they went silent for a bit. And then she gets a message from them asking if she's a quote true goth. And then she gets sent like a text that says from.vision.ruled Thursday 2:30 a.m. And she said that she figured out that it was a 3 words, and I didn't know what that was, so I did look it up. And so it's called What 3 Words. It's a site to make accurate locations. And what they did was they divided the world in 3-meter segments, 3-meter squares, and each square has a unique combo of 3 words, and it's to share an exact location. And this was what Ink 5 sent to Madame E to get Madame E to like a specific location. And the location of itself is in Highgate Cemetery, and she arrives at that patch of land and sees Ink 5 with like, she says a spade over her shoulder. And I was riding my bike when I listened to this, and I did not know. I didn't register spade. I registered like, I don't know what I registered, but in my mind I was like, that's a person on their shoulder, like kissing them or something. And then that never appeared again, and I forgot about it, and I was like, oh, a spade. Okay. A shovel. Ink 5 points to a cemetery and tells Madame E to dig, which is traumatizing to many people in the Magnus archives. If you know, you know. And she doesn't want to do it. And then they turn to her and they say, "Don't make me break your heart." Crawling. And so Madame E just runs away because she doesn't want to deal with all of that. And next day, she hears news about like some graves robbed in Highgate Cemetery. And she's like, I'm done. She cuts ties with Inc. 50 and doesn't associate it with them anymore. And the next video is in response to Inc. 50's call out video, December 20th, the next day. That's a really quick turnaround. And she says that Inc. 50 stands are attacking her. They're doxing her, and some cops even appear trying to pin the grave robbing on her. And she says that her chest is hurting, and everyone is wanting her dead, and she can feel that pain in her. She says it feels like bees stinging over and over on her heart. And then she attempts to show the camera something, which obviously we can't see; we can only hear it. Her like shirt moves, and she's showing the camera something wrong with her chest, assuming like some sort of blemish or something like that. And she says, "I'm taking a break from social media. Goodbye," and leaves. That's the last of that. That's the end of that video. And then the last video is um, unposted, and it's titled "Help," and it was on January 3rd, 2024. A few days after that, after the last one. And we find Madame E in a hospital, and she's been getting comments worried about her state. So made a video about like, hey, this is what's happening. And she said that she's been getting like weird mail, dodgy mail. She says specifically, and her door was set on fire. Hello, what? She should be living with her parents, but now she's in the hospital because there's something wrong with her heart. And her parents say it's stress. The doctors say it's an infection from her tattoo. Mm. And she says, I know it's more. Which, like, when she says it, it's less that she knows that it's something supernatural that Ink 5 did to her, but she knows that it's more than just, like, an infection or stress, something like that. She's, like, somewhere in between that. Like, she definitely does not believe it's, like, supernatural, but she's, like, emotionally feeling it, you know? And she says, the views are cutting and the comments hurt. Sounds very Yushinka there, ma'am. And then she tries to breathe and is finding it hard to breathe. And then there's a sound as if her heart is being ripped out of her chest. And that's the end of the video. That's the end of the case. In scene 3, Alice, Sam, and Celia, who listened to that entire thing, react to it. And I'm surprised. Well, it makes sense that Sam wouldn't say anything right now in Alice's current state. And Sam is like, are you okay? And Sam says, she's fine. I'm fine. And we get a little tick in the recording when she says she's fine, which means she's lying, which you don't need eye powers or web powers to know that she's lying here. And then she's like, she leaves for coffee and they follow her. And then like a few seconds later, Gwen appears and sees the empty room. And she's like, oh, come on. And then she gets summoned by Lena. Which we follow up in scene 4. Lena berates Gwen for letting Lady Mowbray into the OIAR. Gwen says she thought it was safer in a controlled environment, considering the last time she dealt with an external. And Lena says that she took Lady Mowbray on a tour and introduced her to her co-workers, which is not like, as far as I'm aware, not. She might be talking about other people besides Celia, but like Celia's the only one that we actually saw. And Gwennon says she did nothing wrong because she's not like Bonzo. She's just a woman. She's normal. Come on, Lena. And Lena's like, you could not be so wrong. She says that she has no idea how dangerous Lady Mowbray is. And she's like, I didn't know that because you didn't tell me anything. And so it sounds like Lena's about to like fire her or demote her, and she says she insists on getting another external assignment and insists on getting more training, which Lena will consider. She wants to wait to see how Gwen will do, to see if she can deal with eldritch horrors. And Gwen is, I need to know more.
And I can't wait until they keep butting heads for more information because I love more information. I love it. And that's the end of the episode. We go into notes now. So it's the day after the drowned woman incident, and she specifically notes that the tape recorder is gone. And my questions are why? Is it still the web using the controllers? Is it still Animal Cane? Does that mean Animal Cane can still win? You know who cannot still win? Agnes Montague. Because who's still winning? Annabelle Kane. Yeah. And this keeps affirming that Celia knows about the evil powers, evil forces. It keeps confirming that. In the statement, there in the case, there were some web links that were like listed out. I looked them up. They are not real. They don't link to anything. Considering the first time that I looked into something online was the Inksoul Instagram, which has no change, but as far as I can remember, they have gone up to 1,000 followers from the last like 900 followers I saw a few months ago. And yeah, so the links don't work to anything. I needed to check just in case. Highgate Cemetery is not the same cemetery from episode 1 or 11. Obviously, Ink 5 appeared in a cemetery in episode 11. Episode 11's cemetery was Padstow Cemetery, and then one was Graham Cemetery. I believe it was Graham Cemetery or whatever it is. But it's definitely not Highgate Cemetery. That's already 3 separate cemeteries that we've been introduced to in the Magnus Protocol. So go cemeteries, Um, and it seems like Ink 5 is looking into tattoos of the past of people who've died. Madam E even like makes a reference in it how she thinks that they are getting their inspiration for their tattoos from the past, uh, people, dead people, and the tattoos of the past may be connected to Oscar Jarrett, who was the tattoo artist that Ink 5 was looking into when they when they appeared in episode 11. And then Gwen making mistakes could lead to a confrontation between the OIR and other externals. Ooh, or more information, which I don't know which one I prefer. I love drama, but I also love knowing stuff. So this is not going to be in the notes section because I didn't write it down. And I'm not going to write it down now because I'm going to record this now. But the fears, flesh, corruption, or end. So I don't really know where to fit this in. I feel like Ink 5 is more akin to Robert Smirk because it seems like they are interested in the entities in general, but we haven't had enough information about them in the first place to even make such assumptions. We know they did do evil stuff. With the first episode making adjustments and Ink 5 and the woman with the uh, paintbrush tattoo and she's changing her face feels fleshy to me. So I'm inclined to think that Ink 5 is doing flesh stuff. However, there is the motif of infection or bees because Madame Electrum is saying stuff about bees being injected and how the doctors say that it's an infection from the tattoo. So there might be something there. But then there's also Ink 5 telling Electrum, "Don't make me break your heart." I can see a argument about the end coming into play here because of the death that occurs here. So I'm not sure which of Smirks 14 to place on here, but then again, we don't know all the information yet. So yeah, that's the end of these 4 episodes. Thank you for getting to this point. If you got to this point, like and subscribe and share with your friends. Let me know what you think of these last 4 episodes. Which one's your favorite? I think my favorite is definitely Well Run. I enjoy Lady Mabry, and I loved the grounded feeling of the story. I don't remember if I mentioned it, but there was like really good music cues during uh Well Run, and the music is definitely like really good at this point. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about these last 4 episodes. Let me know what you think about Lady Mabry or Ink Vol or the Snake Man or whatever. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And thank you very much for watching. Stay away from people with evil tattoos. And I'll see you next time.